Welcome inside episode 461 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan in the heart of our nation's capital in Ottawa, Ontario, alongside Brandon Pillar up in the Blue Mountains. And unfortunately, I will not be going to the game on Friday as it's the latest in a firing line of Senators games being postponed.
Yeah, I don't know when the Ottawa Senators are going to play another hockey game, Ross, but since there's no Sens hockey in the horizon, we decided great time to get back to our Sens Central Citizen. Today, we got Kurt Watkins.
Yes, back to basics. One of our favorite segments we do on the show. We'll also get a recap of day 3 of the World Juniors and again touch on when the Senators might play again. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Today is Wednesday, December 29th, and Pilsy, I miss Ottawa Senators hockey.
I know, and we thought we were so close here with the game on New Year's Eve, the afternoon game up against the Pittsburgh Penguins, but yet another Ottawa Senators game postponed, and I guess we're going to have to wait till next year. That's where we're at.
Sounds like the game January 1st likely to proceed. That's in Toronto, which makes it even more curious because the update the Senators posted said, quote, the Ottawa Senators home game versus Pittsburgh scheduled for December 31st has been postponed due to Canadian attendance restrictions. That's a new one. Typically, it's been a COVID protocol situation on either side. What was your initial reaction when you saw that it's an attendance situation and not being able to sell concessions?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we got to remember this is a business, and the dollars have to add up at the end of the day. Teams have bottom lines, and ultimately the revenue affects players as well. So everyone is affected by how much money is made at each of these games, and Canadian games are some of the highest revenue making teams in the league. So obviously they're looking to, now that the Olympics aren't going to happen, they have all this time to make up for those games in February. So I don't know, I guess it just seems that they're saying until we can get attendance and cash flow better, we're just going to postpone a bunch of these games and put them in February. Like, I feel bad for the schedule maker. Like, what a mess they've got on their hands here, because filling in all these games and finding out ways to make them fit in February. Sure, you've got the time, but hopefully the arenas have made the time as well. And who knows where restrictions are going to be at that point even. So the whole thing's a mess. And it's interesting that was the reason that the Pittsburgh and Ottawa game was postponed. So then what's going to happen in Toronto? Because as far as I know, Ross, they got the same restrictions as Ottawa being in Ontario together. So we'll see if anything changes on that front, or if they're going to go ahead with that game, because we all know the Battle of Ontario, especially in Toronto, that's a major ticket item. That's a sellout crowd with lots of concessions being sold. So that's very interesting to see if they're going to go forward with that. I'm hoping and praying, because we need something. And I think that would be just a nice little tip to Sens fans. All right, we've been postponing your games for a long time, but you're going to get to celebrate a major win on the first day of 2022 up against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
It would be a great way to start the year, but I look further down the road and my optimism dwindles in a hurry.
Yeah.
That January 3rd game is all but postponed, hosting the Minnesota Wild. I just don't see it happening. And then later on, you've got at Seattle. I don't see any problem with that in the States. And then they're in Western and Central Canada, at Vancouver, at Edmonton, at Calgary, at Winnipeg. And we know Alberta's the wild, wild west out there. But in terms of Vancouver, Winnipeg, who knows if those will happen. And then there's 3 days off before they host Buffalo for their next home game, which would be January 18th. So you're looking at a situation where what's better, just shutting it down for the next 2-3 weeks, or making this team play one game, then wait 6 days, play one game, and then wait another 8 days? Like, it seems like it's all over the place. And these guys are creatures of habit. And right now there's anything but habit.
And that's the thing. Like, they're so used to playing all these games, and they have their bodies conditioned to do that. And yeah, it's tough. Like, this is a tough time to be an athlete. Like, you've got a lot of changes going on, and I mean, hopefully that game in Seattle happens. That's going to be Sens' first ever game in Seattle. So that's a big one. And shout out at UK Senator, our friend over in Britain. He said he's going to Seattle just for that game. It's a new arena, right? So that's one he's got to check off his list of arenas he's got to go to. So hopefully for his sake that happens, and for our sake, because that would be good. And Ross, we got our fingers crossed for Jets Sens too, because I'm hoping to make the trip to Winnipeg, and I would love to see them in action. So there's a lot of hopes, a lot of wishes going on here, but all we can do is react to the news and push through.
Worst case for that, though, Pillsy, we just get an extra dose of Jake Sanderson and Tyler Clevin and the Ralph down there. But I'm right with you. I'd love for that game to go on. But anything I get my hopes up, I feel it comes crashing down. I was so excited to go and hang out with some Sens Central citizens down at the CTC on such a great idea. I loved it. A 1 o'clock game on New Year's Eve. You still have the night ahead of you, but you're able to get that adrenaline flowing early in the day. They've got that big new Sens sign out front with the 2D logo. Awesome. Come on. I need that in my life. And then we can pull up here, just adding another elite opponent here. The Pittsburgh Penguins had won 7 games in a row. So still, the Boston Bruins, the only of 8 postponed games right now where it's a team who has 10 regulation losses. That's wild. These are all the cream of the crop. So the Pittsburgh Penguins added to this list. The Senators now have 8 postponed games to make up. But I do think we're going to see a lot more liberal movement of games because they've got that whole month to work with now. So it's easier for them to just say, oh, let's kick it down the road a little bit. Hopefully things get better and we can get some full buildings for those games, because I do see it from the business standpoint where it's a little ridiculous not being able to sell popcorn and beer. There's a lot of money to be made off of that. Even when the crowds were at 50%, you were still able to, enjoy a pint while you're watching the game.
Yeah.
Or a Built Bar for that matter. So you're able to really, get the full experience. And that's not been possible with the new rules coming down. So let's just all hope and pray, do everything we need to do here to get the Sens back on the ice and in front of capacity crowds the way it's meant to be. Until then, we've got some long-term projects to look at, right? We've got some report cards to give out as we're about a quarter way through the season. We'll save that for a little later on this week, Pillsy, but we wanted to get right to a Sens Central citizen because it's been too long. We were so good at doing it every week for a while there when we started, but it's something we still love and cherish. So today we got Kurt Watkins coming on. Great conversation with him. If you're a new listener to Locked On Senators, you're like, what the heck's a Sens Central citizen? That's where we invite a listener onto the show and ask, how the heck did you become a Sens fan and why are you sticking around, most importantly?
And if you're a new listener to the show, you can be a Sens Central citizen. Just DM us on Instagram, Locked Senators.
Big social media guy. Locked on Senators
there
on
it is.
Instagram. It's Sens Central on Twitter. That's where we're most active. So you can shoot us a DM there. Of course, they're open, and we'd love to have you. We got a few people in the hopper there that are interested in coming on in the new year. So we got to get back to making this a weekly occurrence, if not bi-weekly. But
and especially Ross, the great thing about Sens Central Citizen is we can all celebrate the victories together and wallow in our sorrows together. It's a place where, you guys are listening to the show and you're like, I want to express how sad I am that the Sens aren't playing well. Now's your opportunity.
And the origin stories are my favorite. That's how we always start these off. It's like, why? Why?
What on earth happened that you decided to be an Ottawa Senators fan?
I find it most intriguing for the guys who haven't been fans for a long time, because it was easy to be a fan of this team in the mid-2000s. They were a complete wagon.
Is that a direct shot at me?
No. I mean, you jumped on the wagon with Dominic Hasek. It makes complete sense. Why wouldn't you? Greatest goalie of all time coming to town, and they had multiple Hall of Famers on that team, because I'm already counting Zdeno Chara as a Hall of Famer. Yep. You got Marian Hossa there, Martin Havlat, so many great players that have been through there. And yes, everyone says Alfie's their favorite player. So we have to ask our Sens Central citizens outside of Daniel Alfredson, who was your first favorite player? Anyways, let's get all these answers from Kurt Watkins coming right up here on the Locked On Senators podcast, where you can listen wherever you download your podcast or on YouTube. Please subscribe, hit the thumbs up button if you're watching right now. It does go a long way with the algorithm. Pills, you got a word from one of our favorite sponsors, though, before we get to our Sens Central citizen.
Oh, yeah, guys. 'Tis the season to get your protein bars in. Now, I know the holiday season just happened. Everybody's all hopped up on cookies, pies, cake, Let's switch that from a treat that's not good for you to treats that are good for you. It's Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. Now, just because you're going healthy doesn't mean you don't get to enjoy good flavors. And Built Bar is the king of built flavors. I'm talking about candy cane brownie bites. Candy cane, so good. Brownie, so good. And you're getting low calorie, low sugar, but high protein and high fiber. And these are the little bites ones. So they're the bite-sized Built Bars. I love those ones because sometimes I'm not able to finish a full one. They're so packed with protein, but the bites are a perfect size. So check that out today, Candy Cane Brownie. And since you're a loyal listener of the Locked On Senators podcast, you know we're going to hook you up with a little gift, a little promo code so you can save some money on your Built Bars. Head to Built.com today and use our promo code Locked15. That's going to get you 15% off your next order. Guys, one more time, Built.com. Promo code Locked15 for 15% off your next order. It's Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar.
All right, Pilsy, before we get to the Send Central Citizen, let's tease what's coming up on the other side of the break, the World Juniors. And we discussed the postponement yesterday with Team USA. Will that continue today? They're scheduled to take on Team Sweden. We'll check in on how Ridley Gregg and Team Canada did against Oscar Meyer and the Austrians. Did you see that? Oscar Meyer is a player on Team Austria.
Wow, holy. He better get a sponsorship there. Jeez.
Big wieners and beans guy, Oscar Meyer. All right, without further ado, let's get to this week's Send Central Citizen. It's Kurt Watkins. All right, we now welcome this week's Send Central Citizen. It's Kurt Watkins. You can follow him on Twitter at KurtCM Watkins. Welcome to the show, Kurt. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going good, guys. How about you?
Good. Thanks. So where are we talking to you from?
Out of Brantford today.
Brantford. That's outside, I'd say inside the heart of enemy territory.
Yes.
How'd you initially become an Ottawa Senators fan?
So I grew up in Ottawa.
Okay.
There about when I was like 3 or 4, my dad was in the military, so we moved to Ottawa. And I was there for about 10 years, and yeah, that's where the love started.
Nice. That's awesome. I feel like as a son of a military parent, being in one place for 10 years is quite a blessing. That's pretty sweet that you're able to stay in Ottawa for a while, eh?
Yeah, it's true. A lot of the people who lived on the military base around us, they moved quite a bit, quite frequently. Normally, it seems like every like 2 or 3 years from everything I've heard from most people. But somehow we lucked out and we landed in Ottawa, and just got to watch a bunch of Senators games while I was there. Wish I was still there, but I get to watch them on TV here now.
For sure. And what time frame was that? Was that as they were making their ascent into a perennial playoff team?
Yeah, so I would have moved there in around between 93 and 94, and I moved out of there around 2004. So
okay.
You got to mix.
Yeah, exactly. So when I was young, I guess I would have been watching, like real young, I would have been watching the teams when they weren't exactly good yet, and they were trying to work their way into the league. But then, I would just remember those times when they first started like making the playoffs, and I have all those like things from the Ottawa Sun you'd put in like your window for Go Sento and Rev the Red. I had like the big Senator hat that I got. I have quite a few photos my dad took of my window when they were making those playoff pushes, and those are always really fun to watch.
That's awesome. So as they were making first, I think it was 97, they make their first playoffs, then they win their first series the next year. Outside, maybe it wasn't even Alfie, because that was still early years for Alfie before he was, legendary status. But who was the first Senator where you watched him play? You're like, all right, I'm hooked.
I would say like all those players around those years. To be honest with you, I really remember the name when I was young, like Yashin. I remember him. I remember that name being thrown around and how good he was. I was a little too young to really understand the whole charade that went around him and wanting to get traded and everything like that. I had to go back and look it up myself at one point to understand really what happened.
Why does everyone hate this guy? He's scoring so many points.
Yeah, exactly. When you're a kid, you're just interested in kind of watching people score goals and stuff like that. So to have him on the team was pretty cool. But pretty much it seemed like right as Alfie got there, everything like took off from there. Then you had Wade Redden, Chris Phillips, Chris Neal, all those guys, like all the legends, in my opinion. Those guys really kind of cemented me as a Sens fan, and especially like those games against Toronto. Those were always super fun. All my family is from the Toronto area, pretty much. They all live around here, all hardcore Leafs fans. I'm the one guy with a Sens jersey, so I stick out like a sore thumb. So whenever Ottawa played them, my heart always beats pretty fast. Even now, those are even my favorite games to watch, like all season, because all my friends are Leafs fans, so it's always fun to watch those ones.
Oh yeah, I think pretty much anyone that's not in the Ottawa area is in the same boat as you. I know I was stuck with Leafs fans chirping, and it wasn't hard for when the Sens played the Leafs in the regular season, at least in that time frame. The Battle of Ontario seemed to shift one way rather than the other, and hopefully we get our wish with a good Battle of Ontario to kick off 2022 here. Now, back to sticking to good nostalgic times, so we don't need to get into today's times. What are some of the best memories that you had watching the Sens as a kid? Did you get a chance to go to a lot of live games?
I went to a few. I remember one of the games that I went to was actually a San Jose Sharks game, so that was kind of cool. I remember my dad taking me to that. One of the funny parts, I remember that most of the goals were scored while we were away from our seats, trying to get like or anything like that. So my dad always likes to bring that up. Saw a few games, and then I moved away from Ottawa, and I didn't get to see too many games anymore, obviously. But I would always go back and visit my dad around Christmas time, and me and my sister would go down there, and then we started getting into the tradition of going to a lot of games every time we would go. So I saw quite a few games, seen like the Ducks, the Devils, and then I went to a few games when they were on. I was actually at the game when Matt Duchene got traded to Columbus.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yes, because that was one of those locker room trades, right? Where he just grabbed his bag and went down the hall.
That's the only way Matt Duchene knows a trade.
It was the time when you were like looking at your phone and all the players were just getting traded the entire time, and you were pretty much just like, oh, who's next? Who's next? And I'm going to that game, and I'm like, all right, maybe we got a chance. And it's like he gets traded to the other team, and it's like, this is a gong show. And it was not exactly the best game to have gone and seen, but it was still fun to be there.
What was the score of that one? Do you remember? It was a loss, probably.
It was a loss. I remember it was a blowout. If anything, I feel like it was like 6-1 or 6-2. I remember Brady Tkachuk was playing though, so I was like, hey, cool, I get to see Brady play. So that was a silver lining, I suppose.
Man, he's electric to watch. No matter what the score is, he's gonna bring it every single night. I'm failing to pull up here. Anyways, doesn't matter. It's probably a big loss. All I'm seeing, I'm at the game log that year for 2018-19.
Oh,
it is
boy.
just loss.
Yeah, it wasn't fun to watch, and for some reason, like I have the NHL Game Center package that I paid for, and I'm watching like all these games where they're losing so much, and I look back and I'm like, how did I spend so much time just being angry watching them lose? But somehow I did it. Like I stuck through it, and it's like my girlfriend's always like, do you want to watch something else? It's like, no, I'm committed. I'm 2 periods in. There's no point walking away now.
Yeah. So the weird part of that game too was they had Duchene, but they still had Duclair because Dzingel hadn't been traded to Columbus yet. So I pulled up this game here. You didn't see a Sens goal, so I'm sorry about that, man. They lost that game 3-0. Absolutely no offense. 2 assists for Anthony Duclair, though. So how's that for a little pre-scout on the team? And you look like this was probably the most bare bones of the rebuild. Like you have Lajoie, Yarosh, and Harper all on the same decor with Cody Ceci. Like that. Yeah. You're not going to win many games when you got that.
A little thin of a lineup.
Yeah, just a little thin. But yeah, you talk about Brady Tkachuk, and obviously that's kind of the next era of Senators hockey. How confident are you that they are going to turn this into a playoff contending team? Maybe not this year, but going forward.
Maybe not this year. To be honest with you, it's funny when we set up like this interview, I had to go back and like look at the games because it's been so long since there's been a game, and I'm like, I can't remember how those last ones went. And then you look at it, and it's that beat down on Florida, then a little bit of a kind of a stinging loss against Tampa Bay, but those are the back-to-back champs, so it's not a bad thing there. Then the overtime loss to Philly. Like, they started to pick their games up, and they really started to compete there at the end. And it's funny, you look at their record and you're like, okay, yeah, they're not doing so hot right now. But then when you really kind of put it in context, you had like those 10 games where like half the players were on the COVID list. We were kind of the guinea pig use to figure out when do you cancel games, when do you postpone games. So kind of feel like if they were able to have those games back, they could have squeezed out a few of those wins, maybe got like half of them. Then all of a sudden you got a competing team here. But to answer your question, yeah, I mean, going forward, I could see these guys kind of like Brady Tkachuk, Thomas Chabot. They're all really like starting to pick it up right now. Drake Batherson has got to be the biggest steal in the market right now. Like there's no way around it, how good that guy is. And when you see like his point projections and everything like that, Josh Norris, you're like, wow, these guys, like, you got to get Josh Norris signed to a deal. That's the next scary bridge to cross. But, I'm sure they'll get that done, hopefully. But yeah, you just look at this core now. You got all these guys that are coming up. It seems like they're all, the best part to me is it seems like they're all friends.
Yes.
And they all like genuinely like playing with each other. And when you got a group of guys that genuinely like playing with each other, I think good things always come from there.
Definitely, especially when the main guys are locked up, right? Like you mentioned, Drake Batherson, steal of a contract. Brady's locked up. Thomas Chabot's locked up. So that's a good sign for guys like Norris to.
Zaitsev's locked up.
Yes, Zaitsev's locked up. Matt Murray is locked up.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, it's they're definitely in an interesting place right now. Who's been a player that's really impressed you the most this season, Kurt? Let's stick to positives only, because there could be some negative surprises here.
Well, some surprises obviously, or like Artem Zub. He's so awesome that he can actually just kind of stabilize like any line that he gets put on. Obviously, the big name players are always doing pretty good. Thomas Chabot, how much he logs each single game is unbelievable. Like, what was the last game he played? Like 33 minutes. It's like, it's ridiculous.
He was 35. Yeah, he is just great.
Like,
I get tired watching him.
Yeah, exactly. Like I could be on the ice for maybe 30 seconds and I'm already gassed, and this guy's going for 35 minutes. And it doesn't, like, he kind of starts to get a little sloppy, but I mean, 35 minutes, what do you want from the guy? I mean, he's still far and above everybody else, even after playing like 35 minutes for the most part. So he's always been the guy to like watch, and he's starting to pick up like his offensive game, and he's my favorite. He's the jersey that I have. I had that for a while now, the 2D jersey, got the Chabot, but yeah, he's been him, and Drake Batherson and Josh Norris. Like, Josh Norris is quietly one of the best players. Yeah. He doesn't really get too much airtime. Nobody really like talks about him that much, but then you do like his overall projections. Like, this guy's going to be a 30 goal scorer. Like, it's going to happen easily. Like, he's just doing it all. Like, how many goals does he have this season already? He's in like 14 or 15.
Yeah, he's in that stratosphere for sure. I want to say that he's on pace for 39. If I'm not mistaken. Wild. He's got 14 goals in 28 games. So yeah, that's an easy math problem for me. You double them up, and that's a goal every second game. So yeah, on pace for 41 goals right now. Woo, crazy.
When's the last time that the Ottawa Senators had a 30 goal scorer?
30 goal scorer, I can tell you the answer to.
We talked about this recently.
40, yeah. I can't though. I don't know when the last time. Like,
have they ever had a 4? Well, Heatley.
But like, you might have to go back to that to get the single season 40 goal scorer. They had two guys had 30. I think McCulloch had 35 in 2011, 2012, and Spezza had like 31 or 32 that same year. But you're really having to go back if you're looking at the last time they had a guy score 40 goals. And man, I think he's the guy to do it. Like, he would be. He's ridiculous. That release he's got, a player's good when they have their spot on the power play and people know it's coming, but they still they can't do anything about it. And I just talked my way into finding the 40 goal scores. Danny Heatley, after scoring 50, then scored 41 in 07-08 that same year. So interesting. The last two times they had a 30 goal scorer were the same year. The last two times they had a 40 goal scorer were the same year. Heatley and Alfredson both had 40 in 08-09.
I forgot Alfie hit 40 there. Wow.
Yeah. 89 points in 70 games for Alfredson that year. Unbelievable. They had that great start. I think they were like 17-1 out of the gate, and then they fell apart and lost in 4 to Pittsburgh in the first round. But anyways, hey, let's end off on something that I'm curious about. What would you do if you're in DJ Smith's shoes for one day? Let's say that the schedule was going normal. What would be your first move to make this team a step closer to being a contender?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I definitely like the move of putting Timmy Stützle in center.
Yeah,
I think that second line, they have him at center. You could probably just switch around the people who are playing left and right wing. Alex Formanton really gives the speed. I'm not sure if is Connor Brown right now, is he on the second line with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think he's a good third line grinder, and he should probably move down. It'd be somebody to be pushed up to the other wing with Timmy, and I'm not too sure exactly what you could do, but I know moving Nick Paul and Connor Brown down to the third line is a really good option, because those guys are just they're really good defensively. Whenever you watch penalty kills, those guys are always out there and they're doing exactly what they need to. Like Nick Paul just always gets it to the other end of the ice, and he's just able to hold it down there. But I would say you just gotta. The biggest move I would say now is that we have Tim Stützle at center. I think that's the thing that's really gonna elevate this team, because we always needed a center. We drafted him kind of as a winger for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but to have him put at center now, and it's unfortunate that happened as a result of kind of injuries, but they figured it out now that they need him at center. And then whenever Shane Pinto gets back, place him at center on the third line. And who knows, maybe when Colin White gets back, throw him up on the second line on right wing. Who knows? Throw something like that. Let's get crazy with it at this point. I mean, we have kind of nothing to lose. You might as well start really trying and developing.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Kurt. Yeah, definitely let's see what works here. And I think that was a big reason why Timmy was moved to center, because it's we've tried him on the left wing and it didn't, our roster just wasn't shaping up properly. Now, speaking of the roster, so let's say they keep Timmy at center and everything kind of falls in place like that. And you talked about getting Formanton on his wing, the speed complements him, but then moving Connor Brown down. So you're missing a second line right winger, right? If that's the way we're shaping things up here. Do you think they have someone internally that can take that spot eventually, or do they have to go out and find a dynamic right winger to play on that line?
So I guess the guys who would be options here would be Tyler Boucher eventually. We'll see how he does with 67s. You got Igor Sokolov. Jarventi can play both wings as well. Like one of those guys, or do you think they need to go out and get a veteran presence? Claude Giroux maybe, or someone else?
I mean, we can bring it back to the Claude Giroux talk that we had in our last conversation as well. I mean, that would be a perfect fit. You know, you kind of hear the name thrown around there quite a bit. Would he actually want to come to Ottawa? That's the other question, right?
He did say that he would, though, right? I mean, that was before the season started like this, but he did say he was interested in that. So that's something we can cling to, Kurt.
Well, exactly. I mean, Philly's kind of going the wrong way right now. So I can see, it's a matter of when do you want to get him? I would probably wait till the end of the season. There's really no kind of point in putting your chips in right now to pick up a veteran player when it's not really going to push you over the top. But what position does Ridley Gregg play again? He's a winger, isn't he? Or is he a center?
He plays center, but he's a bit of a flexible guy. I think he could play left wing as well.
I mean, I would personally let's throw Igor in there.
All right, okay, all right.
Let's throw that guy. You know, he's pretty awesome, and he looked pretty good when he was up here for those couple of games during the kind of COVID protocol, and he was thrown into that situation. He didn't seem out of place. So the more time he gets to develop, but yeah, if you're looking at this overall roster, I think you kind of do need some veteran leadership. You know, you got some of the guys who are veterans on this team, but that doesn't necessarily make them veterans just because they've been here for that long. I would say, a player like Claude Giroux, he's been through the battles, he's been through the fights. There's kind of an element of something that veterans bring when they can teach the younger guys how to play and how to fight through it and how to fight through losses and to deal with those kind of things that I think this team greatly needs. So if you get somebody like him to get on this team and kind of guide the younger guys into how to become NHL players, although they all seem like they're on their way, but that could definitely push them over the top. And then you have a player like Claude Giroux, I think you're definitely on the trajectory of being more of a contender at that point.
One thing's for sure in this conversation of but hypotheticals, I mean to say, one thing's for sure, and that's there'd be a ton of Claude Giroux jerseys in the crowd if he was a member of the Ottawa Senators. Kurt, really appreciate you coming on, Sens Central Citizen. Again, go follow him on Twitter at KurtCM_Watkins. We appreciate you jumping on, man. Looking forward to doing this again down the road.
All right, sounds good, guys.
Stick taps to Kurt for joining us. Great conversation with him. Just solidifies the fact that we have to get back to Sens Central Citizens more often. However, you can listen to our Sens Central Citizens wherever you want, whenever you want, because we do have a playlist dedicated to that on our YouTube channel. So you can check out all of our playlists. We're trying to organize things. So if there's a topic that you're interested in, you can go and find it in a hurry. A topic I'm super interested in, and of course, it's in our playlist section, is the World Junior Hockey Championship. So without further ado, let's take a look at how our Sens prospects have fared so far. Pilsy, last night we had our first point alert. Ridley Gregg gets a secondary assist, does some great work in the corner. Puck squirts out to the half wall. Dylan Genther gets it to the point. Lucas Cormier does the rest. And by that, I do mean walks the line, goes in on the left side, and wires the shot past the Austrian goalie. That was one of 11 Team Canada goals. Your thoughts on just another completely dominant performance?
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of expected this, and hey, shout out Austria though. Like I thought, although they were getting absolutely destroyed, they still put forth a good effort, and they still gave it their all. So you got to commend them for that. And
that's so condescending.
No,
I know you don't mean to, but they lost 11-2.
Yeah, that wasn't like a double sportsmanship. I actually did mean that. That definitely was tough. I mean, hey, there's been worse. Remember Team Germany last year? So there's definitely been worse. So not too bad for Team Austria. Room for improvement. How about we say that, Ross?
Yes.
Now, speaking of Ridley Gregg, it was great to see him get a lot more ice time. He had, I think it was about 16 minutes of ice time. So
did.
Nice to get a little boost there for Ridley. And like you mentioned, getting on the score sheet. I thought he looked good when he was out there playing with pace, even though his line is a little bit jumbled from last game with suspension to Sordif. He was able to have some good chemistry with his line mates there. So I think Ridley Gregg's doing a great job as a bottom six forward for Team Canada here.
That was the Connor Bedard show. And we're going to get back to the
Yes,
Senators
yeah.
prospects. I'm going to pull this back up in a second. But Connor Bedard, 4 goals. 4 goals. This guy's 16 years old. And if you look, when Connor McDavid was 16 years old in this same tournament, he had 1 goal and 3 assists for 4 points. Connor Bedard matches it in one night. You know, he had 10 shots on goal, and he played, I think it was 14 minutes.
Wow.
That's like a shot every 68 seconds. Math guy right there.
Yeah.
But, man, what an absolute player. He had five points now in the tournament. This team is completely stacked, from Cole Perfetti, who's leading the team in scoring, leading the tournament in scoring as well, all the way down the list. It was tough to see Ville Koivunen have another great game for Finland, the guy we wanted to be an Ottawa Senator at pick 39 or 42. That did not happen. However, we do have another great slate of games coming up today, including the rematch of the game you just brought up, Canada versus Germany tonight at 9 o'clock. But before we get to that, Finland is the opening game today against the Czech Republic. We'll be interested to see if Levi Meriläinen is in goal for that one. We know Järventie has now played a full game since getting off the COVID list. Therefore, we expect that 11-19 to be pumped up a little bit. Eh, Pills?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, he just needs some time to insert himself in that lineup. And I think the coaching staff's going to have some confidence. I really want to see Roby Järventie get a chance on the power play, because that's where he shines, right? Get him in that high slot, get him open, and his release is so filthy when he gets the time and space, and he doesn't need much time and space. So hopefully Järventie's a guy where either he's kind of invisible or he seems really hot out there. So
or the puck's in the back of the net.
Yeah, so hopefully he can catch some fire here, and I think the power play is where we're going to see him shine. But it'd be awesome to see Järventie and Levi Meriläinen in the same game.
The pesky Slovaks are taking on Russia. Slovakia losing 3-0 to Sweden, although they had 48 shots on goal. You could chalk that up to a goalie win for Jesper Wallstedt.
Yeah.
Unbelievable game for him. Can't believe he fell to 20 still. I have a tweet that said Jesper Wallstedt won't even be there at 10, so don't even talk about him being a Senator. Next thing you know, he goes 20th to the Minnesota Wild.
The second goal he drafted.
Yeah, and then the Slovaks, they fell down early to the States in their first game, but they battled back. They lost 3-2 in that game. They're playing the Russians today. I think I might be on Slovakia for that one.
They might be able to pull one through here, yeah.
And the really sad part of all this is Team USA, there's an asterisk whether they're going to be able to play today. That game against Sweden, I'm super excited
that was like the
about.
first real matchup, eh? That was the first one where two powerhouse teams were going up against each other. Like, I had that one circled. I was ready for that one.
There's been 2 one-goal games in this entire tournament so far. There's been a lot more blowouts.
Yeah. And I mean, Slovak versus USA, they had a goal disallowed too. So they were close.
Yeah.
It was a high sticky one. So that was a real close one.
Yeah, thank God they didn't count that because the K train was standing right in front of the net. So good thing that didn't count. However, you can follow us on Twitter at Send Central. We'll let you know when we know if Team USA will be in the lineup. Again, it seems like there's 2 positive tests, and now it's just test, and make sure everybody's good to go today. And then tomorrow is going to be another great day at this tournament, just taking a peek at the upcoming schedule. And honestly, Sweden, USA is great, but we need USA, Russia to finish off on New Year's Eve. There's, I feel like that's, the story of the show today is postponements, and that's super unfortunate. But what we don't get today, we're kicking down the road, and hopefully eventually we can get to tomorrow. So no Send Star of the night because only one prospect played, Pilsy. So we'll leave you.
We got to give it to Ridley. Come on.
Okay, sure. Ridley gets it as well. Hey, 3 shots on goal. He had a couple of good opportunities, so nothing wrong with that.
And no suspensions yet for Ridley. You got to respect that. 2 games, no suspensions. Keep it going.
Not only that, Pilsy, no penalties for Ridley
Yes,
Gregg.
also surprising.
Clean sheet. So we'll see how long he can keep that up. If you're curious more so about the Ottawa Senators, just to finish up, I updated. These were the practice lines from yesterday. I put an asterisk next to Philip Gustafsson because he's returning from his COVID list today. So he will be back, but I put the lines from yesterday because we're not sure how the players will line up, but I didn't want to just leave one goalie-friendly show. So we put in Gustafsson there with the asterisk. It was Gustafsson and Matt Murray on defense, Chabot and Bernard Docker. And yeah, for all the people who are like, oh, JVD needs to play all these games, he's now had 2 solid weeks of practicing with Thomas Chabot, and that's going to go a long way, hopefully, in his development. You've got Holden and Zub, Hetherington and Mete, and Eric Branstrom back at practice, but he's the odd man out on defense, as is Adam Gaudette. Best opportunity of his life. He's played 7 minutes, scored a goal, been the reason for 2 against, and he's sitting as the extra. The forwards are Norris, Kachuk, Batherson, Stützle, Formanton, Brown, and the one interesting flip here, Nick Paul goes to the 4th line in exchange for Zach Sanford, who's up there with Gambrell and Austin Watson, who I'm sure TSN 1200 says that's the 4th line. It's not. Dylan Gambrell is DJ Smith's 3rd line center. So this is almost a tease, is it not, Pilsy, to see the lines? Usually we do this on game days, but that's not the case today.
This is such a tease. And I mean, especially, there's so many juicy things to get into. Like, when's Branstrom going to be inserted into the top 6, not be the odd man out? Why did Nick Paul get bumped down? What's going to happen with the goaltending situation? There's so many things that are up in the air here. So it'd be nice to get some game action, to get some of these questions answered. But that's a luxury we do not have till 2022.
Again, at Send Central on Twitter, the Senators practice at 10:30 a.m. So we'll retweet the lines when they come out today if anything changes. But until then, we say goodbye. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.